Take one.
Okay. So go ahead and start it and do whatever you do for your intros.
Oh, well, Dave, thank you very much for joining us. And for those who are not familiar with Dave von Kleist,
Yeah.
not von Kleist, von Kleist. His work includes the ripple effect and in plain
sight.
in plain sight.
Wow, 20 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, but definitely check those out. They were included in the email list. You can click on the blue lettering and see them. So take it away, Dave.
Well, I don't know where you want me to take it.
Oh,
Well, I want to start off by saying that I'm very honored that you would ask me to be on. I have basically not been in the movement for what, 15 years now ish. And that was by choice and circumstance. It's another story, a different chapter. But I'm honored to be here, and I don't want to come across like some know-it-all or some expert on anything. I've always been a musician and a singer ever since I was a kid, and did character voices, radio voices. For many years, I was the voice of WTNH Channel 8. Hey, Husky fans, you've got a front row seat of all the action of Big East basketball. Tonight is UConn meets Villanova, right here on WTNH Channel 8. So that's what I did for a bunch of years. And it was during the first Gulf War that I saw raw feeds coming in from overseas of our military dozers dozing bodies into a pit. And that night, Peter Jennings, World News Tonight, well, the bombings continued in Baghdad today, but of course, there were no civilian casualties because America's using smart bombs. And I realized that they were lying. And that's what set a fire under my butt, knowing what I knew about broadcasting. And that's what inspired me to become a talk show host. So fast forward to 9/11. I was doing the Power Hour radio show on the GCN radio network. Same network that Alex Jones is on. Used to have he was on after my program. I used to invite him on to tell who his guest was going to be. But anyway, we went on live at exactly 9 o'clock Eastern time. Now, historically, that the first tower had already been hit at 8:46, I believe it was. I didn't know that at the time. I got connected to the network. Hi, Jason. Check, check. 1, 2. We're okay. Yeah. All right. Fine. I turned on my TV monitors. There's Fox. There's CNN. And I went, oh my God, what's going on? And then my mic went live. I was live on the air. And so I told all the listeners, ladies and gentlemen, before we play any music, before the introductions, please run, don't walk to your television, and start taping any network you can. Something horrible is going on in New York. So all over the country, because we were coast to coast, we had about 65 AM stations. We were on shortwave, internet, satellite, XM. So all over the country, people put tapes in. Well, needless to say, that day was a pretty horrible day. And there's no need to go back. We all had 9/11 shock for a couple of weeks. And that's all we saw. That's all we knew on the media, of course. But excuse me. But I remember 2 weeks afterwards, George Bush was on television at a press conference, and he said, ladies and gentlemen, we got to stop showing these terrible attacks on America no more because America needs time to heal. So they stopped showing any of the replays, any of the different angles and all that. You know how it goes. Well, at the same time, I started getting videotapes in the mail. I ended up with about 65, 70 videotapes, and I had ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, CNN. I had WPIX, WOR, WNEW. I mean, all the local stations. And of course, I realized that they weren't giving releases on their footage, and they weren't showing it anymore. So where would people ever see this video footage? So I realized that I sort of had an obligation to make some sort of a video. And that's how 9/11 in plain sight was created. Needless to say, it got pretty big. And then 3 years later, this is when it produced the 9/11 ripple effect. So, and that was because 9/11 in plain sight made such a big splash. So anyway, that's the story of the origin of how 9/11 in plain sight came about. Questions?
Yeah, well, that's fantastic. So what are you doing recently?
Well, I'm just now going back on the air. In '09, I'm not going to get into all the details about it, but after 9/11, Ripple Effect was released. We had some personal differences with Joyce and with my partner William Lewis. The whole thing just blew up, and at the same time, unfortunately, my mother ended up having to go into a nursing home, and I'm the only child, so I had to move back east and take care of her till I could get her in the nursing home. And that's when everything sort of fell apart. And I figured, well, if I can't trust the people in my foxhole, then what's the point of fighting this anymore? You know? So I took off and I went down to Argentina for about 6.5, 7 years, just playing my music, having the best Malbec in the world, hanging out with the locals. Had some good times and some very interesting times. But now I'm back in the States. I'm here in the Northwest. And for the past several years, as John Lennon sang, I'm just sitting here watching the wheels go round and round, you know. So I've been sitting here putting all these puzzle pieces together. And I'll tell you that once you get, and 9/11 is just one. And the multiple pieces of 9/11 I know are you focus on. But 9/11 itself is one puzzle piece. And you've got the Oklahoma City bombing over here, and you got TWA Flight 800 over here, and you got the 7/7 attacks, and you got this, and you got that. They're all connected. And when you start putting all these puzzle pieces together, you end up with a big picture. And the big picture is rather horrifying. And I think we all see it manifesting in the country and in the world as we speak with all that's going on. But it's all going to come out.
Yeah, it is coming out. I think there's kind of a renewed interest in 9/11 over the past 3 or 4 years, since the lockdowns.
Mm-hmm.
And But people are still very distracted with everything else that's going on with Lahaina and Gaza and Ukraine, and
Yeah.
that
And
it's hard to get 9/11 activists actually involved. But one question I had for you, um, when did you begin to doubt the official story on 9/11? And uh, have you evolved with 9/11 truth into um, different things that you think happened that day?
well, that's a rather big, wide question. I believe that there are many truthers out there, of course.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons why I backed out of the whole thing is because I saw what's happened across the board. I mean, going back into when I was on the radio during the 90s and early 2000s, there was a lot of what we called radio wars going on. This talk show host is disagreeing with this talk show host, and that time they were all fighting this Alex Jones and Jack Blood, and my video is bigger than your video, and my book is my radio show. And I just said, wait a minute, we all have puzzle pieces. We shouldn't be fighting amongst each other. We should, and looking at each other as competitors, we should all be teammates. You take your puzzle pieces, put them on the table. I'll take mine, put them on the table. We'll all work together and put the puzzle pieces together. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that are in it for the ego or the accolades, the recognition. And I said that taints the whole thing. So that's one of the reasons why I backed out of the whole movement and said, the heck with all of you guys, you sort it out. But because I got into hot water because of, oh my gosh, the Flash and the pod. Oh my gosh, that created such a problem. You're familiar with the issue of the Flash and the pod, correct?
The pod, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Flash. The Flash is even more important than the pod. If there was a pod, I don't know. It looked like there was. I mean, I got sideways with another 9/11 truther that I worked with, and he said that was a missile. I said, well, we don't know that it's a missile. He says, you got to tell him it's a missile. I mean, look at it. It looks like a missile. You get the hole in it's a missile. I said, I'm not going to say it's a missile. I mean, I don't know if it's Pee Wee Herman strapped to the belly of a plane. There was something there, but it didn't belong there. But I can't say it was a missile.
Right.
So people said, if you don't know what it is, then you shouldn't talk about it. What? If we don't talk about it, how will we ever know what it is?
Right.
And that was unfortunately the attitude of a bunch of folks. And so I was got sideways. I mean, when 9/11 in plain sight came out, the flash in the pod was a pretty important puzzle piece the way I saw it. And I'm sure you all know Loose Change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, do you know Loose Change second edition, or do you know
Yeah.
Loose Change?
Both.
Okay. Well, Loose Change second edition is the one that most people are familiar with. The
Mhm.
first one that came out, Loose Change, that came out, it was only out for about 2 months. And he took it down and he redid it. And he took out the flash and the pod.
Oh, wow.
Okay. It was one of the first things he put out there. And that was like, now to this day, he said he took it out because of time restraints, which may or may not be true. But my attitude is that those were two essential puzzle pieces as to figure out what was going on with these planes.
And
You
Dave,
know?
those two particular, the flash and the pod, were the foundation of the work that I did for 9/11 synthesis, the Manhattan airborne sorties,
Uh-huh.
where I did a lot of sorting out after your presentation, and it just all started to make sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Well, there was a lot of stuff that was going on there that's never even discussed. And the stuff that I don't know, I never claim to have all the answers. Again, I have these puzzle pieces. Okay. I'm not an expert. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a physicist. I'm not a chemist. I'm not a biologist. I'm a guitar player. I play guitar. Okay. and and so anyway, the point is we should have been throwing these puzzle pieces together and trying to figure it out, because that flash, if you've seen it from all that, we had 4 different angles in the 9/11 in plain sight project. And the most important one was where the plane was coming in frame by frame, and before it hits the building, you could see the flash on the building, and you can see the reflection of the flash off of the fuselage. So it was not a point of contact, couldn't have been. It was aside from where the nose made contact, had a reflection in the side, and it was directly in line with the anomaly that we don't know what it was. And for lack of a better word, we call it the pod. So what was the pod? I don't know. Was there some laser guidance going on? I don't know. I'm not the expert on that. But I find it rather curious that those are the two issues that people just don't touch upon. I'm just not aware of anybody that's really focused in on that, because I do feel that those are keys.
So, Dave, I have made you co-host. So if you've got any screenshots you'd like to share, feel free. And for the
Oh, I
rest,
didn't know I could do that. Screenshots, huh? Can I play video clips?
yes, you
Yeah.
can. As long as they aren't to an hour and a half long.
No, because I do have the video somewhere on this computer of the 4 different angles.
Yeah.
I could play them. I don't know if you're into it or not, but you said you had something that you wanted to show. While you do that, I'll see if I can find it here.
No, I was going to just say to the rest of the group, if you have a question or comment, please raise your electronic hand, or if you can't find your electronic hand, which is under reactions at the bottom panel. Okay, so we have a few people. I'm not sure who came first. Al, go ahead.
Sorry, it was muted. Um, have you or joined the 9/11 Truth Movement, or are you still sitting by the corner waiting for something to break, or what are your goals, if any, with 9/11 Truth?
Well, at this point, like I said, when I left the 9/11 Truth Movement, went down to Argentina, I just pulled away from everything. There was a pretty dark period in my life. A lot of personal stuff happened all at the same time, and I was ready. Somebody used to listen to my show on the shortwave down in South America, said, "Hey, look at, if you ever want to get the heck out of Dodge, 2012 is coming. Come on down here." So at that point in my life, I said, "Why not? What have I got to lose at this point?" So that's why I shot down there, and I basically divorced myself from the whole situation. I'm not proud of that. I just, threw in the towel. And like I said, after it wasn't a good split from the radio show, and 10 years of sweat equity in a business, all of a sudden gone.
Mm.
And like I said, and my mom, unfortunately, she was losing her marbles. Alzheimer's was setting in, and it was just a difficult time. So when I had the opportunity to leave, I left. So, but now I'm back, and like I said, for the past few years, I've been sitting on the sidelines, just watching this group, watching that group, and no, I haven't affiliated with anybody at this point. I don't know. Like I said, like you said, I'm just basically sitting here watching it sort itself out.
Okay. So did you reside in New York before you went to Argentina?
Well, no, I lived in New York years ago when I was a kid.
Oh.
I went to grade school in Brooklyn. I lived in the West Village. So no, those are my old stomping grounds. It was New York City, Manhattan. So and I went through high school just as they were crawling. Those towers were crawling themselves into the sky.
Hmm.
So
Craig McKee has a question or a comment. Craig,
mhm.
go ahead. Can't hear you. Your mic isn't working, Craig. Oh dear. All right, while you sort that out, we'll go on to the next person. Miles Flagg has a question, comment?
Hi, thanks. Nice to meet you, Dave. I'm
Hi
in
there.
Canada, and as you said, there's so many things going on that we need to see they're connected.
Mhm.
Such as right now we are having a war in Ukraine, which immediately when it happened, all the mainstream media, even publicly funded media here in Canada where I lived, said it's unprovoked. Russia's unprovoked.
Right.
I was like, wow, maybe somebody should ask the Russians how they felt about it. Like we're just supposed to believe there's no context or history to anything. And I just want to encourage everybody to maybe do what I'm planning to do. And that is, I told my wife, I'm going to be cremated at some day, but throw President Eisenhower's 1961 farewell speech onto the pile or into my coffin. Because that speech by President Eisenhower is so explicit that there is a military industrial complex. He was going to add congressional, but he thought he still needed to get something done, apparently. But he not only talks about the military industrial complex, but he explicitly says it will capture government agencies and the whole apparatus of government and NGOs today. So Ray McGovern says it's the Mickey Mat, military, industrial, congressional, intelligence, media, academia, think tank complex, plus I'll say add NGOs, non-governmental organizations. So ultimately just your thoughts, because I'm picking up this mantle of unprovoked, because most recently the King of Canada, where I live in Canada, I'm to be in allegiance to the King, he has said Russia, this war is unprovoked. Russia was unprovoked. It's this
Not exactly.
manipulation. So anyway, over to you.
Well, they're not quite right when they say unprovoked. As a matter of fact, it's a bald-faced lie. If you haven't seen it, Oliver Stone did a documentary film called Ukraine on Fire, and he documents what happened in the changes of the guard back in 2014 and how the United States manipulated the election, blah, blah, blah. They installed Zelensky. And the Ukraine has become the Central Eurasian and European hub for drugs, sex trafficking, money laundering, you name it. Not to mention that there's been ethnic cleansing in eastern Ukraine of the native Russians who were there. But one of the big issues are the biological laboratories that are placed all along the northern border of Ukraine, right along the border of Russia. Now, I think it was 33. I think it's 33. It might be 31, but 30, that's an interesting number. 33. That's another conversation altogether. But anyway, the point is that if we in the United States found that Russia had 33 biological experimentation laboratories across the border in Canada, we'd be a little upset too, feeling a little bit threatened. And then you couple that with the saber rattling of NATO. NATO's been trying to get Ukraine to join them. They want to surround Russia. That's another big argument that everybody's having. Is NATO, trying to advance eastward into Russia? They said they wouldn't do it, but they're doing it. They've already done it. So I could see why Putin would be really PO'd. And I don't think that the United States would be too happy, like I said, if we knew that let's say that Canada had become a major North American hub for sex trafficking and drugs and money laundering and all kinds of corruption, and there were those biological laboratories. I think the United States would respond accordingly. So I don't blame Putin in the least for this. What's going on in Ukraine is disgusting, and it has to be, I mean, we're throwing so much money over there, just like we're throwing so much money into Israel. And both of the regimes are just absolutely corrupt beyond description. So,
one thing I'd just like to add for everybody to think about, the retort is that, oh, you're a Putin puppet and, you're in support of this authoritarian regime in Russia. Well, yeah, we've pushed them to become more authoritarian because, as you said, biolabs were being built. Now the New York Times has identified their CIA bases have been there for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about authoritarianism creeping in. I'm old enough to remember in Canada, I don't know if you folks in the US remember this, but Quebec had a liberation terrorist group called the Fédération de Libération de Québec, FLQ. And for a few days, a couple of weeks or something, they had kidnapped an ambassador from England, and someone had been assassinated. And Pierre Trudeau rolls out the War Measures Act, and everybody's rights were basically curtailed. So talk about authoritarianism. Well, we've been threatening and lying to Russia from 1990 when they said they wouldn't move 1 inch past East Germany. And of course, that's going to make them have to retract, because every extended hand of friendship's been slapped away, rejected. And the U.S. has unilaterally canceled nuclear treaties. So anyway, it's like, before you start calling the kettle black, look, we got to look at ourselves. Thank you.
You got that right. Well, excuse me. I don't know, Susan, does anybody else have any questions? Because I do have a little bit of a story to share with you.
Well, Jack Bottomley has his hand up.
I'll wait. I want to hear the story.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, first of all, I have to assume that everybody on this call does research. And I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, are familiar with the Wayback Machine. Is everybody familiar with the Wayback?
Yep.
Okay. Well, if you go to gulfwarvets.com and go back to the late 90s, early 2000s, and you'll see the website that Joyce and I had, because the two of us came together, as I'd mentioned earlier, on the issue of the Gulf War. And we were the American Gulf War Veterans Association. And during the 90s, we were traveling coast to coast to coast to coast, and north, south, east, west, going to VFWs, American Legions. Shout out to all the veterans who. But anyway, I'm making the story longer than it has to be. The bottom line is that we had made a lot of friends in the military. And anyway, at one point, Joyce got a phone call, and we were both, and I'll use the term, strongly invited to go to a meeting. And that was a result of a presentation that Joyce and I had given to the Presidential Commission on Gulf War Syndrome. They gave her 10 minutes. And so when it came her time to speak, she said, "Thank you very much for the opportunity to address this panel." She says, "Senator so-and-so." And she held up the documents because we had all the documents. "This is Senate Report, blah, 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 10397. You sat in on this panel and you know exactly all the documentation that's in here in regard to chemical and biological shipments to Iraq. I'm sure you've shared all this information with the rest of this prestigious panel, and I don't want to waste your time or mine going over information that you've already had." And then she goes, "Congressman so-and-so, this is congressional record, blah, blah, blah. You sat in on this panel, same thing." She says, "I'm sure you shared this information with the panel. I don't want to waste your time or mine. Colonel so-and-so, here are the after action reports from CENTCOM that went to Schwarzkopf and Powell. You know about the chemical and biologicals that were documented here. You shared it with this panel, I'm quite sure, and I don't want to waste your time or mine." And then she said, "Oh my goodness, I have about 10 minutes left. 7 minutes left. I'm going to turn the remainder over to my husband, and he's going to sing you a song about the Gulf War." And they all went like, "What?" And they're walking around. Some of the Secret Service are talking in their sleeves. I grabbed my guitar, and I had written a song called "Where Are the Voices That Care?" And you can find it on YouTube. Just punch in my name and then "Where Are the Voices That Care?" It's a video. Anyway, I named names, times, places. I gave all the different stuff, and I pointed my finger right in their faces. Well, a week later, the transcript came out. And the reason I did the song is because I wanted the lyric in there. Like I said, I'm a musician. Well, they had deleted or censored or whatever. The lyric wasn't there. I guess music isn't that important. So I was pretty upset. So it was a week later, Joyce got a phone call. That's when we were strongly invited to go to a meeting. So we went to San Antonio, and we went to the whatever Holiday Inn Sheraton, big presentation room. We went in there. The doors closed, and then there were a couple of guys standing at the doors. And then the moderator comes up to the podium, and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, I would like to let you all know that if you're in this room right now, you have been thoroughly vetted. We know who you are. We know exactly what you do, and we're honored to have you here." And I went, "Whoa, that's interesting." Anyway, he gave a presentation and basically gave a thumbnail sketch of what happened to our country for the past 200 years, tracing, the 1812 and up to the Civil War. And then he got to the year 1871. And that's when the United States was incorporated. And he says, this is when all the organized crime families, the industrialists, and the bankers all got together to take over this country. And they knew they had to be patient. They had to be diabolical. They had to be stealth, and they had to be ruthless. But they were going to get it done. And it took them decades to put their ducks in a row. And by golly, they got it done when they took out JFK. So he gives a quick explanation of what took us up to that point and what's happened since, and why so-and-so got taken out, why so-and-so got taken out, why so-and-so taken out. He brought in the idea of social engineering. He brought in the idea about influencing society in different ways that the media is doing. And we're seeing it here. We're seeing it now. It's been manifested and it's in our face. And then he said, well, folks, we've been living in a de facto situation, a false government, a corporatocracy. This is not what our founding fathers meant. We're supposed to be in the organic Constitution of 1871, and that's when it was abandoned. Everything after that is de facto. It's false. It's a matrix, if you will. He says it took them decades and generations to get this done, to take our country from us. And I'm here to tell you, it's going to take us decades to do the same. But we have to be just as sly, just as diabolical, just as ruthless, and just as patient. But we will get it done because we are the good guys. We have God on our side, and we are the white hats. White hats, white hats, white hats. That echoed in my brain for many years. And then, I don't know, am I being too long and long-winded on this? I'm giving you all these puzzle pieces, what I've seen, how over these years I've been sitting here watching this, but excuse me. Let me change gears a little bit. Here we go down another rabbit trail. We know that Donald Trump was elbowing with all the mucky mucks in the 80s and 90s. And he grabbed a few on the way. I mean, a guy as rich as he was and as dashing and as handsome, of course, he played the field and got a little bit on the side, and he bragged about it. So he was being groomed to join the the elite, if you will. How did George Carlin put it? The club. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. Okay. Well, he was asked to join the club, and he was doing it. You know. However, in the 90s, in the early 2000s, he had a big party. You may have heard about this. He had a big party in Mar-a-Lago. I think it was 2005. And what happened is that I believe there was something involving an underage girl. The details are rather sketchy, but I think that what happened is that they offered to have him cross a particular line to move up in the club.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, not no, but hell no. Get the F out of here. And he threw the Bushes out. He threw the Clintons out. He threw everybody. It was a huge party in Mar-a-Lago. He threw them all out. And right after that, Jeffrey Epstein got nailed for the first time. Of course, he got a slap on the hand. Okay. And that leads us into another rabbit trail with Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, Robert Maxwell. I'm sure you're all familiar with all this stuff. Okay. However, the military saw this and said, this guy is not one of them. That's a line that he won't cross. Yeah, he's a scumbag, and yeah, okay, but he won't do that. Maybe he had a come to Jesus moment. Maybe he did. But that's when the military says, we got to see how this is going to work out. That was in, like I said, 2005, 2006. Then we get to 2011, 2012. President Obama signs the bill. Remember, he was going to weaponize the NSA so that they could spy on Americans for the IRS. It was in the news. Everybody was all upset. Obama signs this thing to allow the people to be surveilled on behalf of the IRS. Well, there are good guys, shall I say, white hats in the military. Like I said, they've been in there for a while. They keep a low profile. They realized that their people in the NSA, if they can spy on all the regular Americans and follow their bank records, et cetera, well, gosh, we could spy on the Congress. We could spy on the Senate. We can spy on the judicial. We can spy on the CEOs of the networks. So what they started to do is compile all these transactions, all overseas accounts, offshore accounts, this payment coming in here, that shik-shing, and they see where this network of money laundering is going. Couple that with how it's connected to the drug trafficking and the sex trafficking. And oh, by the way, there are a lot of these sex rings that love to, shall we say, get important people in compromising positions on video. That's what the Maxwells were doing. That's what there are many agents like that doing. Yeah, some of these congressmen and their senators, yeah, they're hopping into bed and having a ball, and it's all on video. So guess what? Trump gets elected. How did he get elected? Because they turned off the electronic fix. They knew Hillary was going to get in. Everybody remembers the 2016. Everybody was saying it's going to be a landslide. Hillary's going to get it. Hillary's going to get it. And meanwhile, the guys at the NSA, all they did is they shut the whole fix off. They let the real votes get in. That's how Trump got in. And meanwhile, the deep state is going, oh, crap. That's why they started going after him. And again, this is not in defense of Trump. I'm not saying he's a wonderful guy. It's the military who wanted him there because he's not one of them. So now you get Trump into office and he has a capitulation tour. What was that? He had all the documents. He had all the videos, the DVDs, the video footage of a lot of these monsters all over the world. So the first thing he does, he goes to Saudi Arabia, to the royal family. He says, hey, guys, look what I got here. Because Arabia, I mean, that's a big hub for sex trafficking. And oh, my goodness, remember when the whole royal family was locked down in the hotel? That's why they were locked down. The royal family was having their nuts put in a vice. And that's why they had a capitulation, and they had a big celebration where they did the sword dance, which is only done in a transfer of power. And they gave the sword to Donald Trump, and the bad guys got exposed. So the white hats and Donald Trump are playing hardball, hardball. So from there, same thing happened. He met with Bibi Netanyahu. He was in the Netherlands. He went to NATO. Remember the video clip of him coming out of there and he pushes this other guy behind and straightens his jacket? Remember that? That's because he just made them his bitch. Sorry that put it that way, but that's what happened. And then he went to the Vatican. And by the time he was done there, the photo op of the Pope and Trump, you should see the look on the Pope's face. He looks like he was hit by a truck. And then he went to the Royal Palace. And if you remember, he went with the Queen and marched along the guard and the whole thing. And she basically beckoned him to walk in front of her. That's like giving him the lead. And then he met with Putin. And Putin gave him the soccer ball. He says, yeah, buddy, you're getting it done. I'm on your team. This was called the capitulation tour. So he formed an alliance, okay? And this alliance is about 80 countries now. And it's not an alliance with Donald Trump. It's an alliance with the white hats in the military to clean up the world of the filth and the scum and all these people who have been doing all what they're doing all through these years, through the Lusitania, the Titanic, and, the World War II, all of it is connected. And it all goes back to the same people, okay? And what's going on right now in Israel and Palestine, how did that whole thing come about? They're not talking about Zionism. They're not talking about bloodlines. Well, let's talk about it just for a couple seconds, all right? You may have heard of the Balfour Declaration. That was an agreement between the Rothschilds and the Royal Palace. If you can read it for yourself. And they said, we're going to establish a, quote, Zionist state of Israel. Zionist. What is Zionism? It's the belief that you have one country for one group of people. Okay? In this case, for the Jews. Now, what if we had the Zionist states of America? All you Catholics, you get to have California. If you're not Catholic, you have to leave California and leave everything behind, and they get to take your stuff. That doesn't sound right. Okay, all you LGBTQ, you get to have New York State. If you're not LGBTQ, get the hell out of New York State and give all your stuff to them. That's what Zionism is. Makes no sense. It's not good. So the point is that they wanted to establish a Zionist state of Israel. Now, who wanted to do that? It was the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds and the royal family. So if you do a little search, type in Ghislaine Maxwell and Jacob Rothschild, and then look at images. This is not hard to do. You can confirm this. So if you put in Ghislaine Maxwell and Jacob Rothschild images, you will find there's a photograph of the two of them posing in front of a huge portrait of Satan releasing his dominion. I don't know how many are familiar with that photograph, but what does that tell you? It tells me that Jacob Rothschild and his family, and along with Mariana Abramovic, who is a self-professed, open and admitted high priestess of the Satanic Church. Now, is this formation of the Balfour Declaration of God or of someone else? This should give you an idea of the mentality of the people who are behind this whole thing. So Zionism, bad. Satanism, bad. Okay. I mean, am I being overly simplistic here? Am I being stupid about this? I don't think so. I don't have a philosophy degree or science or anything, but you don't have to be a registered, certified, and licensed pyrotechnic expert to have a valid claim of fire. So you look at these people who were involved in the creation of the Balfour Declaration, and they're not good people. The Rothschilds are Satanists. They worship Lucifer. Now, I don't mean to bring up religion or anything like that. And frankly, it doesn't make any difference what I believe. It doesn't make any difference what you believe. What matters is what they believe. And they've been pulling the strings now for generations. And this is what's all being exposed. This is why 9/11 is one of so many puzzle pieces. You know, we can spend the rest of our lives trying to uncover 9/11, but we'll never get that out unless we get to the head of the beast. And the head of the beast is what's been pulling all these economic strings, and what's going on all over the country. I counted worldwide, there were nearly 700 fires of food processing plants around the world since 2022. 116 of them within, I think, about 8 or 9 months here in the United States. What's going on with our food production? What went on with the Key Bridge now? That's going to be a very interesting story. That's another 9/11. It's right in our faces. Okay. What's going on? How is it that we have all these millions of illegals coming across the country? That's not done by accident. You know, Mayorkas, Alejandro Mayorkas, he's been working with the UN and the the Hebrew Immigration I can't remember the acronym, but it's a group that assists people in migrating, and they had offices in Central America, and they're helping the immigrants, to figure out how to way to get into the United States. In the UN and the Red Cross is handing them out maps on the easiest place to cross into the States. And meanwhile, we've got a lot of military-age Chinese that are coming in. And you don't get out of China unless they let you out. So what the heck are they coming here all by themselves, leaving their families at home for? Is it because they want to find a better life in America? No. I have no doubt that they all have been given addresses to go to. Hey, when you get into the States, you go to Atlanta, here's an address. You go to Denver, here's an address. Chicago, here's an address. New York, here's an address. LA, address. You'll be housed, you'll be fed, you'll be sheltered, you'll be trained, you'll be briefed, you'll be supplied, and you'll be given your missions. Am I sounding too much like a crazy person here? I don't mean to go off on a rant, but I wanted to throw all these puzzle pieces at you and let you see this is a huge, huge thing, and it's all being exposed at the same time.
Where do you get your information?
Everywhere. It's in our faces.
I'm looking for evidence and proof.
Okay, we'll pick one of them.
Something you can prove in court. You've made a lot of allegations about a lot of things.
Yeah, we'll pick one.
It's fine. I'm not putting you down for it. I'm just saying.
I don't take it as
to be able to actually have solid proof. And I have no idea what white hats are. I have no idea a lot of things you were talking about. And, in my opinion, we were going to stick to 9/11 here. But, it's fine to go off on other subjects. But, and one of my problems is I don't buy into Donald Trump either. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. What I wanted to ask you was, and you've already answered it, the future of the 9/11 movement and your experience with it. And then have you been involved with, any of the Supreme Court attempts, Mick Harrison, Matt Campbell, Captain Dan Hanley?
No, I have not.
You have not?
No, like I said, and that's why I was open and honest about it in the beginning. When I backed out of the whole situation back in 2009, I never wanted to be involved again. Hell, I didn't even want to be Dave Von Kleist anymore. Patriotic balladeer, talk show host, producer of documentaries. I was saying, that's it. I'm turning the page.
I think we all feel that way. Anybody that's been in the movement long enough is fed up with it, but it doesn't, it doesn't go away. And, we're looking for justice, at least I am, for the 3,000 people that got murdered. And there's no statute of limitations on that one.
Oh, yeah.
But I also wanted to mention, you were going back in the history of false flags, and it was something I was hoping you would talk about. And the project for the New American Century, Brzezinski, the Grand Chessboard, these are all continuations of 9/11. or the origins of 9/11. And then you have today's reincarnation with Newland and Fromm and all the people that have been in the State Department and these continuing wars that we're involved in are very much a part of, once you unravel 9/11, all these people are going to be exposed. And anyway, that's kind of what I'm interested in getting your opinions on, if you're aware of it.
I did want to mention before he addresses your question that Jack Bottomley and David Schlesinger,
Yeah, go ahead. I'm just rattling.
because that sounds like a lengthy answer, and John and David have been waiting a long time.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
apologize for being long-winded on that. I mean, I like I said, I have all these puzzle pieces that I've been looking at for all these years. So I'm just sharing what I got.
No problem.
Okay,
Can you
Jack,
hear me?
go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Is it clear?
Oh, there's a background noise.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's somebody else that's buzzing their microphone.
Let me mute everybody.
Oh, okay. I have two comments. First, I disagree with the source of the evil. I think it's the Khazar Zionists, but that doesn't matter.
No, I'm in agreement, 100%. Yes, that's right.
The media, especially right now after October 7th, it's amazing the tricks they're using. For example, the Gray Zone and other online Jewish groups have pointed out, proven that there were no rapes on October 7th.
Right.
And so what does the media do? The media is doing specials on rape and how it's always been used and how
Right.
women have been ruined, and they're constantly having specials on rape. And when you try to explain, especially to a woman, that there's a chance that those rapes didn't happen, they put their hands over their ears because they're so indoctrinated by PBS, NPR, BBC, etc.
That's right. You're 100% right on all of
You
it.
might be an expert in that kind of thing. My other point is that when I saw In Plain Sight, I was absolutely thrilled because it makes the it's a very good video editing. And I'm so happy that you're back on the scene because a lot of those videos are disappearing, and we really need them. And especially the way you just described the flash and the pod. That is so important. And I can't even, except for yours, I can't even find any more videos of that. Thanks.
No, well, you're absolutely right, and I agree with you 100% of everything that you said. You want to start talking about the Khazarians? Absolutely. That's where I was sort of going, but I didn't get there yet because I realized I was too long-winded. But no, you're absolutely right. There are certain subjects, like you just repeated about the flash and the pod. I'm very hard pressed to find any of the videos or researchers that even talked about that. We do have, of course, there's the 9/11 architects that, of course, been focusing on Building 7. But again, Building 7 coupled with the North Tower and the South Tower and the Pentagon, I mean, they are all absolutely connected. Absolutely. And the point is just to focus in on one puzzle piece, which is, of course, they focus in on the Building 7, the Solomon Brothers building, and yet sort of like push the other ones to the side, try to decide if it was a controlled demolition. Of course it was a controlled demolition. They all had to have explosives in there. Otherwise, it just doesn't make sense. When I do my radio show, and by the way, I'm back on the air, I call the show the WTF Reports. I'm on every Tuesday and Thursday at 2:00 Eastern time for 1 hour. And the theme of last Thursday's show was, how many coincidences have to occur before the coincidences are no longer seen as coincidences? And you look at that with the 9/11, you say, yeah, they're not separate events. They're all connected. So to focus on one and just ignore or demonize people who research the other is just like I said, it's more divide and conquer. So anyway, that's sort of what I had to say about that. And you're absolutely right. Again, you start getting it. That's why I brought up the Rothschilds. That's why I brought up, the Zionism, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very deep rabbit hole. I mean, after all, we just got out of Easter. How many movies about Easter and about Christ being risen and Moses and all the religious programs and the history of the Christians and how they fled Egypt? Okay. But you don't get all those kind of movies about how the Jews got all started. Oh, they would say the Israelis. Yeah. Okay. The Hebrews. Yeah. But what about Eastern European? That was a whole nother situation over there. They don't do movies about that group, the Eastern European Jews. Interesting. Who was it that got chased out of that Jesus threw out of, who were the money changers that Jesus threw out of the temple? Was it John 4? No, John 8:44. That's interesting. Revelation 2:9 and 3:9. Those are interesting. There's a whole different sect out there that people just don't know about. Anyway, enough on that. You do your own research.
Okay, David Schlesinger, you're up. You have to unmute.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I've been active so long. I've actually been in your presence before. One time when you were arguing with Kyle Hentz, I guess that's about the Flash in the Pod.
Kyle Hentz, I haven't heard that name in years.
Yeah. So what is the controversy with the Flash in the Pod? What's the significance of the Flash in the Pod?
Well, I would like to enter into this conversation at some point with you too, Dave, and both you, Davies, because I've done a lot of research on this area and I have strong opinions.
I have no opinions. I just want to know what he's. Yeah, I'm happy to hear either of you, but I just know that is the main thing that is controversial about Dave von Kleist. But go ahead.
Well, gosh, I wish I'd known I could pull out the magazines. I remember the old Popular Mechanics. They even published the photograph that showed the anomaly. I'll call it an anomaly for lack of a better word. It just sort of, I don't even know where the word pod came from. They ended up calling me a pod person,
Yeah.
But anyway, the bottom line, I don't know what it is. Like I said earlier, it doesn't make any difference. The point is that according to the video footage, and by the way, Colonel George Nelson, who was at the Pentagon, and his interview is on 9/11 ripple effect.
Yeah.
He gave his expert opinion. He says, there was something attached to the belly of that plane. He says, I was in charge of identifying aircraft and aircraft parts, and that ain't supposed to be there. So I had his testimony. And then there was also an ABC correspondent. Oh, gosh, what's his name now? I can't remember. But all these guys are in the 9/11 ripple effect video with their opinions as to whether or not there was something on the belly of that plane. And they all agreed that there was. Now, what was it? I don't know. We need research. That's all I was saying about that.
I have another question too. Yeah. You're saying that Trump won in 2016 because certain people intervened on his behalf.
That's what I believe. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because like I said, the fix was in for Hillary. They've been manipulating the voting booths for decades.
I agree. But who is it who was acting on behalf of Trump in 2016?
Well, again, I can only speculate. Okay. Like I said, my particular perspective goes back to 1996 when I explained earlier that I was in that meeting where this guy basically said that we are the good guys in the military and we are going to get our country back because we're the good guys. We are the white hats. And then once Trump got in there, you may remember the Q posts, the Q drops. And the Q drops started talking about white hats. And that's when I got a chill across a chill down my spine and the hairs went up on my arm. I went, oh my God, the white hats. I hadn't heard that term since 1996. So I started paying attention to it. And that's when all of the more puzzle pieces started to fit together.
And so why did he lose in 2020 then?
Because they had to let him lose. Well, here's the thing. you have to show the people. People have to be shown where the corruption is. Okay, you can fight all day long behind the scenes, et cetera, but the people of this country have to be shown. Everything has to be revealed. So the point is that they had to let this fraud go. And this is why so many people, that's why we had the January 6th thing. People knew that the fix was in. And that set forth the battle between the deep state and the Americans, so the patriots in this country. Okay, so the point is people had to be shown that that was a fraud. People had to be shown that COVID-19 was a fraud. And they're seeing that now too. Unfortunately, millions of people will pay the price for taking that jab. But the people have to be shown that they've been lied to. They've been manipulated. Because you can tell people all day long, but until you smack them between the eyes with a 2x4, you can't get their attention. And not only that, but most Americans have the attention span of a potato. So the point is that the people have to be shown the corruption here, the corruption there, until they get enough in their brains that they can figure out that we're on the wrong path and we got to do something. I hope that made sense.
Well, as an example of why Trump did not drain the swamp, I mean, I'm a Bobby Kennedy supporter, and he had asked Bobby Kennedy to begin to deal with the vaccine issue, and then Pfizer gave Trump $1 million, and he bounced Bobby and put in former Pfizer executives. I mean, so Trump, he's just full of shit when he says he's going to drain the swamp.
Well, let me look at it this way. And again, I am not a big Trump guy. I've said that several times, and I'll keep on saying it. I believe that what's going on here is a military operation that is, for lack of a better term, of biblical proportions. Because we're not just dealing with the United States government, we're dealing with the world, with the direction the entire world has been going. We're dealing with a matrix that's been set up by very specific bloodlines and families and secret societies, et cetera, et cetera. And again, it's not what I believe or you believe, it's what they believe. Those things exist. And Eisenhower warned us, Kennedy warned us, and there are many people that have tried to warn. Bill Cooper tried to warn everybody. But the bottom line here is that the people have to be shown. The truth is a bitter pill. If you're going to introduce, let's say you've got a baby and you're going to introduce solid foods, you don't sit down and give them a plate of nachos with jalapenos. You're going to be on the wrong end of projectile vomiting, and they'll never try it again. Such is the case with the truth. The truth has to be administered a little bit at a time, and people have to show. You can't tell them. They have to see it with their own eyes. If they got fooled, like Mark Twain said, it's easier to fool people than to convince them they've been fooled. And we have generations of programming that's got to be undone. And it's all being done on a whole bunch of different fronts. Look what's going on, the expose in Hollywood. Okay. What's that guy, Bo Diddy or something like that? Now he's being exposed as another Jeffrey Epstein. Well, he's one of many, and Jeffrey Epstein is one of many. This is a worldwide evil BS that's been going on, and it has to be administered a little at a time, and the people have to see it with their own eyes. So that's why we're witnessing a slow motion, super slow-mo train wreck on a global scale. Ooh. I hope that made sense.
I appreciate your answer.
Thank you. Lorenzo has his hand up.
Hi. Yeah.
Hello.
Howdy, Dave. Going back to the Flash and the pod.
Yeah.
Again, that was, and you had another Air Force officer on in Ripple Effect. I forget his name. I don't remember his name.
Oh, an airline pilot. I had Russ Wittenberg on that.
Yes,
on Ripple
Russ
Effect.
Wittenberg, and he mentioned his suggestion that it was an incendiary, and that's what triggered my research into why would they use an incendiary, not an explosive, not a destructive rocket, but an incendiary rocket or projectile.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, that was not Russ Wittenberg. Russ Wittenberg was a pilot for United Airlines, and he just happened to be off that day. He was commenting about how difficult and impossible it would be for them to fly a plane from all the way across New York State and then have the transponders turned off, turn around and find your way back to New York City, and then fly into one of the towers with precision. He said that that was impossible. But who you're talking about is Glenn Stanish.
Glenn
Glenn,
Stanish, right? Thank you.
yeah,
Thank
Glenn
you for reminding.
Stanish. Right. He's a pilot, and he was the one who gave his opinion as to what the flash was. He did say
Right.
it had to be an incendiary because we analyzed
Right.
that. Okay, it could
Yeah.
not have been a static discharge
Nope.
because the flash occurred before the plane made contact. So
Quite
you
a
can
ways
rule-
before. Right.
yeah, you can rule that out. It wasn't
Great,
static.
great observations and great cognitive ability. What you're looking for and what you recognize as far as, yeah. I mean, it's a cognitive gift or a curse, whatever. Go ahead.
Well,
Dave.
it's common sense, and like I said, if the flash is there, what caused the flash? And so what Glenn Standish was saying is, say, look, it couldn't have been a static discharge because the static wicks on the wings of the plane would have discharged it anyway. But it was
Yep.
a clear day; there wouldn't have been that much static,
Right.
if any, on the plane.
Right.
So you have to rule out static discharge. Then some people say, well, it was when the nose hit the tower, it caused a big flash. No, number one, the flash happened before the plane made contact, and that's recorded in both of the known videos of the airstrikes. The Naudet brothers footage shows the flash as well. So that confirms that the flash was real, by the way. It's not just in one situation, it's in both. And as far as the nose is aluminum, and aluminum doesn't spark. Okay.
Although the nose part of it
Well,
is probably a
composite. I'm sorry, composite. Yeah, I'm sorry, I misspoke.
Yeah.
So-
and I mean, the morning, like you said, the static, the condition, the atmospheric condition was just prime.
Mhm.
That the essentially it's an aluminum building too. So there's, I mean, it wouldn't have been there wasn't enough time for any friction heat to have been created at that point.
Mhm. Well, that's why. And again, for those who are interested, I mean, we could talk about that for a while. Please, if you go to my website, davevonKleist.com, you have access to my music and you got access to the documentaries. 9/11 Ripple Effect is available. If you click there, it'll take you to Vimeo and you can watch the whole thing yourself. And the analysis contains all the different testimonies from all the different people we just mentioned.
Highly recommended for anyone that that's looking for honest, qualified people with good cognitive ability about, essentially describing what it is they're seeing and what it might be about.
Well, see, I also want to throw something in. Remember earlier in this hour, I was telling you that in the 90s, in the early 2000s, Joyce and I were the American Gulf War Veterans Association, trying to get help for the veterans. So we knew a lot of people in the military all over the country. And also, we spent a weekend in Cancun with Ron Paul and his wife, Carolyn, at a income tax symposium. Anyway, the point is that we had a lot of contacts in the military. So when 9/11 in plain sight was released, of course, it went kaboom and it went viral. It was all over the world and created a lot of controversy. And what happened is that some of the people in the military that we used to know contacted me and said, "Hey, Dave, I saw your video, man. You got a lot of stuff on there. You're asking a lot of questions." I said, "You're right. I'm asking a lot of questions that some people don't want asked, let alone answered. Would you like to talk about it?" And that's how I got, connected with George Nelson, Colonel George Nelson. He was 25 years at the Pentagon in charge of identification of aircraft and aircraft parts. Yeah. I also talked to General Albert Stubblebine, who was 25 years in charge of photo analysis. Glenn McDonald, that's his name. He was also a U.S. Army investigator, and he was a correspondent for ABC News. So, I mean, I talked to several different experts on the subject. And again, if you want to see what they had to say about it, just click on it, watch 9/11 Ripple Effect, because those interviews are right there.
All right. By the way, that's how Bob Bowman died, the Gulf War syndrome.
Yeah, yeah, I knew Bob.
Yeah, he was one of the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I think of him often. Chris Berger has his hand up, his physical hand, but
Yep.
also Maxwell Bridges had a couple of questions in the chat. Are you able to speak, Maxwell?
Yes, I can speak, but my questions had to do with the flash again, and you guys were kind of talking about it. I still don't hear some logical speculation into what it did. Although at one point I remember Dr. Jones mentioning that, oh, maybe this flash, this for lack of better, this laser is using to ignite the nanothermite, because nanothermite is hard to ignite on its own. But that was my question, and I don't have to go further.
Okay. Now, again, I am not a chemist or an expert in any of these fields. I mean, I do have my opinion about some of this stuff, but then again, so do we all. We all got belly buttons. But the as far as the flash is concerned, what was it? I don't know exactly what it was. What I do know is it wasn't supposed to happen. Now, when you have these planes set up, I mean, if you want to destroy the towers, well, let's look at it this way. The towers were originally owned by the New York Port Authority. Okay, back in, I think it was 95, well, maybe it was 98, 99. The EPA went to the Port Authority and said, "Hey, you got two dirty buildings here. They're loaded from top to bottom with asbestos, and that has to be removed. We'll give you 10 years to get rid of it, or else, you'll be fined, So the EPA tells the Port Authority that you got to fix this very serious problem with asbestos. Okay, let's put that on the burner over here, on that stove burner. That's going to percolate for a bit. Now, when I talked to William Lewis, we became very good friends, by the way, during those years. He had told me that approximately 65% was the occupancy rate of the World Trade Center. 65%. That means about 35% was vacant. They were not having a lot of income coming in. Okay. Oh, okay. That's not looking so good. All right. So you got those two things going. Now, put that on this other burner. We're going to let that percolate for a minute. All right. Now let's look at the world situation at the tail end of the 90s. Okay. How many world wars were going on? None. No. China is our biggest trading partner, and Russia was just trying to recuperate from his collapse a few years earlier. They were no threat. So if you're in the military industrial complex and you don't have any threat for war, are you feeling financially secure, or are you financially insecure? I think we all know the answer to that. Military industrial complex needs a war. So let's put that on this other burner. We got 3 burners going now. Then you put together the project for the new American century, which was brought up earlier. They said that they needed a new Pearl Harbor event so they could justify bombing the snake snot out of brown people in the Middle East. All right. So you put that on this burner over here. So if you decide that you got to get rid of these buildings because they're dirty and they're losing money, and you need an excuse to start a war, and you can't demolish the buildings, you can't dismantle them, not in downtown Wall Street, in downtown New York and Wall Street. That's impossible. You have no choice. You have to have an insurance fire. So Larry Silverstein takes up the mantle on that one. You all know the story on that. He gets insured. And so they got to have a war. So what better way to do it than to plan to take these buildings down? Now, how are we going to take these buildings down? My gosh, we can't just blow them up. There has to be a reason for them to come down. I know. Let's go to the Northwood documents and we'll take that idea that they had of painting planes, switch them over, and fly planes into targets. We all know about the Northwoods document. So that seems to be a logical probability. And of course, having those planes hit, they would have to hit those towers. You can't miss. You got to have some sort of a guidance system, some sort of a GPS, something to let those planes hone in. And then, of course, once those planes hit, we have to make absolutely positive sure that those buildings are going to go down in a great, big, spectacular explosion. Oh, okay. So we end up with discussion about whether or not the charges were put in there by the Israeli art students. What was it? The number M18, I think, was on the cardboard of those boxes that they were unpacking.
Dave Cole disagrees.
I'm sorry?
Dave Cole disagrees on that.
Okay, well, that's fine. I'm just looking at puzzle pieces and saying what if, but yeah, if you got something to correct me on, I'm open to that.
He just says that the boxes were not, those were labels for boxes other than what you said is what a lot of people think. And Cole, he's my favorite researcher. And so that doesn't mean Israel wasn't involved. It's just that those were not, the art students were not involved.
Well, we don't know. But the point is, I'm just looking at the puzzle piece. Maybe one of them doesn't fit there. Fine. I don't need that one. I don't really need that one either. I mean, there's so much other stuff. Oh, and then there's the dancing Israelis. We could talk about that. We could talk about the bomb that was supposed to go off and blow up the Washington Bridge. We could talk about that. The point is, each one of these, like I said, how many coincidences have to occur before the coincidences are no longer coincidences?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Craig McKee has, I think, solved his problems. And I know Chris Bergier, before he got back on, before Craig McKee got back on, raised his hand. Chris, are you okay with letting Craig go first?
Oh, sure.
All right, go ahead, Craig.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Miles, for helping me out with the connecting to Zoom through the phone. Appreciate that. Yeah, I don't know what my audio problem is. It's now happened three Zoom calls in a row where the other two it just cut off in the middle, and this time it never worked in the first place. So I got to work on that. Anyway, hi, Dave.
Hello.
Glad I could finally get in here. Hi there. You and I have had some interactions on Facebook, but I'm delighted to get a chance to speak to you for the first time live. I wanted to ask you. You started off towards the beginning of when your remarks where you talked about how different things can get in the way, ego and different things, and people want to, they don't want to, they want to sort of fault somebody for having a different opinion, and everybody's sort of competing for space and stuff like that. And I certainly know what you're talking about. I did want to just get your thought about, one of the things that I've come to feel over time is that, not all of this is authentic in the sense that it's not everybody is being honest when they're disagreeing. So I want you to comment on this, because I think that we have to assume that this movement is infiltrated. It would be crazy to think that it isn't.
You darn betcha.
Right. Okay, so I'm glad we're on the So it's going to be seriously infiltrated, and I think there are times when problematic behavior, can be traced to that rather than just to personal difficulties that different people have. And one of the kind of red flags that I would point to, and I'm interested to know how you feel about this, is when you get people who, on a major piece of evidence, spend literally years and years and years pushing a major piece of the official story.
Yeah.
And, and not, it's not that we can't disagree about little elements, and maybe the official story is right about this, or maybe it's right about that. But when their main focus is telling us how correct the official story is on a major piece of evidence, the main one that I would offer being the Pentagon, this is where I sort of think the red flags go up. And that's why, and when I point out some of this problematic behavior, I tend to get accused of engaging in personal attacks, when I think what I'm doing is calling out seriously problematic behavior. So anyway, I'd love to just get your thoughts on what I've just said.
Well, you're dead on the money. I don't care what movement that you're involved in, whether you're fighting for, exposure of chemtrails or vaccines or whatever, 9/11 truth. Yes, there are infiltrators that come out and create agitation and animosity and conflict. And my personal experience with that, for instance, right after 9/11 In Plain Sight came out, I don't know if many of you remember Jimmy Walters. He was a philanthropist, and he put up a bunch of money. He bought 1,000 copies of 9/11 In Plain Sight and was distributing them. He put together a couple of symposiums that I was flown in. Let me see, we did one in Miami and one in Tampa, I believe it was. And there was me, there was William Rodriguez, Eric Huffschmid, George Nelson, Colonel George Nelson, and oh gosh, what was his name? Tip of my tongue, brain fart here. Was it Reynolds? Not Morgan Reynolds? Was it Morgan Reynolds? Yeah, Morgan Reynolds. Yeah,
right.
yeah, Morgan Reynolds. And he was formerly with, I guess he was with the first Bush administration or Reagan administration or something, education or something. I forget. But anyway, I'm making a long story too short. In these presentations, of course, the 9/11 In Plain Sight was dealing specifically with photographic and video evidence. And I was very careful when I produced that not to come to any absolute definitive conclusions. Like I mentioned earlier, I would not settle in and say that the pod was a missile. I don't know what it was. And I was very careful not to, put out some sort of a definitive statement, and thereby they could label me as a conspiracy theorist. So I was very careful about that, and they couldn't back me into a corner. So they couldn't attack my credibility or the way I was handling it. So they had to attack the video and photographic evidence itself. And that was when, shortly after, that back in then 2005, all of a sudden we have this movement called the no planers. Everything was CGI. Everything, those planes didn't exist. There were no planes, no planes, no planes. And the earth is flat, by the way. So the point is that that created a problem for a lot of people. Okay. And then there were other folks. Judy Wood, for example. Now, I'm not doubting that some of her information is accurate. I have no doubt that the military and the powers that be have weaponry that we've never even heard or imagined about. Okay, so direct energy weapons. A lot of people have never heard of thermite. Okay, I think all of these things may have come to play. All right. So, and as far as, any division in the movement, well, again, you brought it up. There's a lot of division, and some people are going to point their finger this way and say, you're wrong. And no, you're wrong. And there you go. So this is why we end up stuck in the mud. And that's why I said, to hell with this. I'm not going to do this anymore. I got out in 2009 and went to Argentina. Right. Anyway, hope that answered your question.
Well, if I can just quickly, can I do a quick follow-up or no?
Yeah, I'm not the moderator, but that's fine. Go ahead.
Okay. I wasn't sure about. I know what you mean, but I guess where I get stuck, or where I feel the movement gets stuck, is that, everybody thinks that when you call out bad behavior, even if you can document it completely beyond a shadow of a doubt, that constitutes division. And I guess I would argue that if somebody is trying to kind of poison the well on purpose by trying to push us towards the official story while at the same time claiming to be truthers, that I don't consider that division if the people are inauthentic that are being called out. I think if we want to come together as much as possible, I think we need to do it under the flag of, you know, like what can we show to be wrong with the official story? What can we show to be false, or at least, you know, something worth investigating, as you were talking about. And when people are pushing the official story, then I'm not willing to say that this is a division, because I'm not willing to accept that what they're saying is genuine.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So,
you know, the old saying, you know, you don't look for what you don't want to find. All right. The bottom line here is that folks like you and like me and everybody on this call, the 9/11 truthers all over the country, and indeed all over the world, have been pulling all kinds of documentation and evidence and photographs and there's tons of it. But the powers that be don't want to acknowledge its existence. It was like, okay,
right.
What was it? I think it was on September 18th of 2001. It's about a week after Condoleezza Rice put out I was at a news conference, and I think I can paraphrase, if not quote her. She said, "We have definitive evidence that links Osama bin Laden to the attacks on September 11th, and we will reduce this information, quote, in due time." To this day, they never released any information linking Osama bin Laden into the Taliban. They're sure there was lots of accusations, but they didn't put out any evidence. So when you call conspiracy, but you have no evidence to support it, that's a conspiracy theory. Okay. You remember the analysis I gave on the 9/11 in plain sight, you know, about the lottery ticket. You know, I mean, if you want to win the lottery, but that's, you know, you could win the lottery, but as long as you don't buy a ticket, your win is theory. But once you buy a raffle ticket, it becomes a possibility. And the more raffle tickets you buy, the more possible and eventually probable your win will become. And that's exactly the way it is with a conspiracy theory. Okay, we've been gathering evidence for decades now. So is it a possibility? Damn right it is. And eventually, what point do you reach where you got so much evidence that it's no longer a conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy fact?
Right.
And that's why I said before, how many conspiracies have to occur before the conspiracies are no longer conspiracy theories?
I agree. But then you have the situation where some people are trying to pull that evidence off the table. You know, in other words, we've already done the work. It's already clear that it's evidence. And there are people who are trying to say, oh, let's not look at that anymore because it's in doubt. It's controversial, like the Pentagon. And so that's where I get, you know, people get mad at me for defending this evidence and saying, no, we can't just allow it to be tossed in the garbage can.
Thank you.
Some people, yeah. So that's what frustrates the hell out of me. And then I got.
How do you think I feel?
Well, I know. I think I know how you feel.
I mean, that's what
anyway,
the flash and the pod. That's what the flash and the pod was all about. They didn't want to talk about that. Take it out of your film. If you don't know what it is, you can't talk about it. I said, okay.
Well, yeah, good for you for sticking to it. Anyway, thanks, Dave.
No, I appreciate it.
All right.
No, like it isn't so much that we have to show all the evidence to prove what really happened. We'll never really know what really happened. We should put it on those that are in charge of putting out the official story, the official narrative. You prove what happened. You're the officials, aren't you?
Right. And yet there are people in the truth movement who are trying to flip that so that we're the ones with the burden of proof. The people that are pushing the official story at the Pentagon, they want us to be the ones that have to prove how the damage happened instead of the government having to prove how a plane crash caused it. So
Well, they
there's the
tried.
problem.
The NIT, National Institute of Technology and Science, put out their report, which was absolute horse hockey. I mean, my God, the evidence. I mean, their graphic and the model
is
that
about
they
New York.
used.
You know that.
What's that? Oh, you're muted. I can't hear you.
NIST is about New York, not the Pentagon.
Well, okay. Pardon me. Okay.
He
Well,
didn't say NIST. He didn't say NIST. He said NTSB.
well, regardless, the
I think.
official, I forget
Yeah.
who it came from, but the official report from the Pentagon had their diagrams showing the plane slamming into all of these support columns, but they left out the engines. They left
engine.
out
Yeah.
they left out the wheels. I mean, my God. I mean, you want to talk about putting out BS? I mean, that's their officials. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. And you're all
Yeah.
conspiracy theorists. Don't.
And some people in the movement are trying to agree with that official word.
Well, that's because
I
it's
find a
safe.
problem.
That's because it's safe, because they don't want to be called a conspiracy theorist. Oh, you're a tinfoil hat. People don't have any balls anymore.
Right.
Sorry. I didn't mean to swear on it.
And
But
It's a 5.5
Thank
hour
you.
video they put forth, and it is closer to the official story, but it is not the same thing as the official story. It is fair to say
almost
it's closer.
entirely.
Yeah.
Almost
It-
entirely, Dave.
Well,
There's,
there are important differences.
there's only one thing in it that's different. Only one thing in it that's different, and that is who was flying the plane.
Mhm.
That's the only thing.
What I was impressed with that is that they had the plane hit the very first floor. I mean, it's hard enough to hit 5 floors from the side, but to hit the very first floor, that implies special guidance.
Well, absolutely. I mean, and not only that, but hey, you know, the 9/11 in plain sight video, we put the footage in there of the Pentagon before that collapse. Now, that collapse happened approximately 28 minutes after the event. What was the event? Of course, we said it was a plane that flew into the Pentagon. But when you look at the video footage of the Pentagon before the collapse, there's only a 16-foot hole. The
No, it's
front
bigger.
lawn is pristine. There's no skid marks, no crater,
Right. No skid marks.
nothing.
Correct. No skid
And
marks. Correct.
There's no place for those engines to have slammed into that building. Yeah, I mean,
Hey, guys, hello.
Yeah.
We're coming up to 8 o'clock, and I don't mean to cut it short, but we still have the Boston 9/11 agenda to go over. So if you can wrap up your final statements, that would be great. This is very interesting stuff. I don't mean to put it down in any way, so
Well,
Yeah, can I have a couple minutes for my question first?
yeah, if you can make it
Well,
fast.
yeah, no, I just want to say that, yeah, I appreciate your research, Dave, and I really agree with you that there's a satanic, demonic component to the 9/11 act, okay, and I believe, and that's something that a lot of these researchers don't understand, and I'll give you an example. On August 16th, 2001, just 2 weeks before 9/11, Mayor Giuliani announced that he would be renovating the Washington Square Arch. Okay, and he said the project would cost $1.5 million, but it was $25 million. And the only thing that they wanted to do is they wanted to move the water fountain 23 feet east, okay, from the old location. Is anyone if so this is an important piece of research that I'm not sure if the 9/11 Truth Movement is aware of, but I'm going to go to screen share right here, okay, and if you see my screen, can you see my screen?
Yep.
So the fountain pointing through the arch originally was pointing at the Statue of Liberty, right? But somehow somebody very rich and powerful wanted the site to the fountain to pass through the arch and to the north tower. Okay, and the reason why, okay, is because, okay, let me do another screen share here. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
I used to play handball in that arch.
right. So if you see that the arch
Yep.
is framed by the
Yep.
twin towers. Okay.
Correct.
And in you know, satanic ritual, the arch is like the pathway to the, you know, different, you know, demonic planes of influence. Okay.
Yep.
So
A portal, if you will.
also what happened is that the perpetrators of 9/11 actually picked the real birthday of Jesus to do their crimes, to adulterate that date.
Oh, that's another rabbit hole.
Oh yeah. And no, I just thought, I wasn't sure if you were familiar with the movement of the renovation of the water fountain and the
No, I was not. I was not. And
okay,
that's
because
and that's
that's some
interesting.
very, that's some very important piece of evidence that proves your case. And so you probably listen to the you probably listen to 107, is that correct, Dave? Have you heard
Oh,
of him?
I'm all over the map. Him and Charlie
Oh, okay.
Ward and
So yeah, when people make the statement, yeah, now who are these white hats? Okay, they don't exist and all that. Okay,
Garrett
well,
Johnson.
yeah.
Garrett-
I would just say, well, I mean, on July 7th, 2022, both the Georgia Guidestones and the obelisk in the Vatican got hit by a directed energy weapon.
Right.
So who was ever controlling this directed energy weapon? That's the white hat. Also, 2022.
Maybe so, maybe no. We don't know.
Well, I you know, I'm not 100% sure, but I can put these pieces together. And there was also when Biden went to Nantucket 2022, he had a Hertz motorcade, and when he parked his cars, all 5 cars, all of the front ends were surgically singed, sparing the gas tank. So I mean, for me, that's, you know, that's sign of them in motion. Okay.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. But I just wanted to you know, point out the movement of that the alignment between the water fountain in the
Yeah.
in the Washington Square Arch.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that instead of being in line with the Statue of Liberty, it got changed to be in line with the Twin Towers. And this was 2 weeks. The announcement was 2 weeks before September 11th that they would do renovation on that park.
Interesting.
Very
Well, I
good.
appreciate that that puzzle piece. It's not one that I was aware of. But that
Yeah.
just proves, you know, this is why I'm saying there's so many puzzle pieces, and what you're bringing to the table here indicates that yes, there is ritualistic stuff that's going on, which is
Right.
why I brought up the Rothschilds and
Right.
Mariana Abramovic and who's behind all this stuff. It's
I
a
don't
big,
know
long
how
rabbit
you
hole.
can prove this stuff, believe me.
Sorry?
I don't know how you can prove all this stuff. I mean,
I just
you
told
gotta
you.
stick to the evidence, and
No, it is. Well,
we
it
already
is
have-
evidence.
that they
We
renovated the park.
already have a case.
Yeah.
Why go down another rabbit hole when you don't have to?
Well, you have to see how the whole puzzle fits together, Al,
That's
to really
great.
figure out the proof.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
but I think you're diluting the, you know, the 9/11 movement by, you know, going off in too many tangents. I mean, you may be right. I have no idea.
Okay,
Well-
well, consider this. Consider this. Hold on a second. And now, if I'm right on this, okay, like I said, Sun Tzu says, hold your friends close, but hold your enemies closer.
Yeah.
You have to know your enemy. That's in Sun Tzu. So the point is that if you want to know who's behind it, you have to get familiar with what kind of people you're dealing with. Okay, and and believe
That's
me,
fine.
yeah. Well, and that's
But
why I
go
brought
out
up
onto the street and talk to the average newbie that has no idea what the fuck you're talking about. and
exactly.
You're never gonna get anywhere. Believe me,
Right.
I've been hit over the head too many times to bring up any of this stuff. You gotta
Well-
keep it simple. And
Yeah. Well,
that's
just
my
just on
message.
a point. Well, hold on. When Robert David Steele visited, there was a crowd of 70 people over in Providence, And
Yes.
I had my 1967 Newsweek article of David Rockefeller, his watch pointing to 9/11. When I passed that Newsweek article around to a lot of people to show them, they were absolutely, I mean, a lot of people had a you know, just were very, very you know, taken back by that and very, very moved. And it really, really woke the whole crowd up. If there was anyone that had doubts that there is this cabal that's doing it. So,
Well, the people I talk to, they think you're crazy just to bring up 9/11. So
Well, this is
I'm
why,
looking
you
for
know,
a message. I'm looking for a message that can bring them in. I don't want to go down any other road other than being a one-trick pony on this and being able to tailor a message to people that, you know, you have to start somewhere and just, you're all over the map as far as I can see.
well, again, if you wanted to, okay, let's tie them all together. Let's tie them up. Okay. You all know about the PNAC, Project for New American Century. We know all of the cast of characters. We know George Bush. We know all these other people. Do you know how many of those people have connections with the Rothschild family and their occult beliefs?
I'm
Have you
not
looked into
doubting
that?
you. I'm not doubting you one bit.
Well,
But
that's
I'm
right.
just
Okay, so you have
saying-
to know your enemy. If you don't know your enemy, you can't figure out how they think and how they work. So
Yeah,
the point is,
I get
we
it.
have to
I
know
get
what
it.
motivates them. Okay,
I'm
once
just
you
saying-
understand that, what they're involved with, those puzzle pieces fit together.
I'm just saying, we're a 9/11 group that wants to get to the people that are uninitiated. And that's what our goal is. And it always has been. I mean, this stuff is great. You can talk about it all you want, but believe me, you know, it's like sales. Keep it simple, stupid. And that's the
well,
message.
I think, yeah, but I think, Al, I think this information is for people that already understand 9/11 is an
Well, that's
incident.
Yeah.
fine. Talk
Right,
among
if somebody
yourselves.
doesn't, yeah, if somebody doesn't understand, I mean, the people that came to that Robert David Steele, you know, were already pretty much aware and high up in the,
Right.
but the average guy on the street, I agree with you that you got to keep it
He's-
really simple.
You're right.
Someone thinks that Bin Laden still did it, you got to slowly wake them up with Building 7. So I mean, I agree with you there, Al, you know?
No,
I'm in agreement too. Absolutely. And yes, we do go down a little bit of a rabbit trail here, but I'm just assuming that everybody on this call is not here for a 9/11 101 talk. Okay.
Right,
We've all
right.
been down these roads
Right.
before. Okay. We're talking like the 201 or the 301, you know? So, I
Well-
mean, I have to assume that most of the people on this call are familiar with, you know, the people who were involved with this. I mean, who was it that said earlier that Rumsfeld had announced the day before 9/11, we were $2.3 trillion, couldn't find
Right.
it at the Pentagon. Okay. So, I mean, you know, yes, we can be real simple and basic about it for the layman who doesn't understand. I mean, a lot
Right.
of this stuff, I can't talk to people in the street. They think you're talking a foreign language.
that's right.
You know, no, I get it. You're absolutely right. But I assume that this was a call involving people who have been down some of these rabbit holes and could use a couple of other, you know, puzzle pieces to follow or another rabbit trail to follow.
But we're also here to bring the uninitiated into our group. And, you know, as far as
On this,
what I strive to do,
happen.
it's what?
You're not gonna get new people on this Zoom call.
I don't know about that. I mean, if we're out on the street and we get people interested in one or two messages,
Years as a group.
well, I think we've done more than that.
Let me see. Well, how many people are on this call right now? I can't quite see.
We've got 13.
13. Okay, well, I'm sure that of the 13, I would assume that all 13 wouldn't be here unless they had some background and knowledge about the controversy of the 9/11 attacks.
But you're
Which is-
missing the
yeah.
point that we put this out on the internet as a, you know, on our website. And that's where the hope is that people will get, you know, come to it and then listen to the show and want to get involved. And if you go off and you know, the white hats and everything else we've been talking about, I think it does more harm than good. That's to my opinion. I'm just one of many, so.
No, I agree with you. 100%. Like I said, I assume that we would be discussing all of the different forces involved in the creation of not just the 9/11 event, because that's just one of many. This has been going on for decades, for our entire lives, and that's why my particular uh, avenue of research has been not. I mean, yeah, 9/11 was a big one, but I got involved before that, having to do with the Gulf War and the depleted uranium and where the weapons sales and the money that was going, the military-industrial complex. All of these are puzzle pieces.
I
All of
marched
them
on
led
the
us to
State
9/11.
House in Massachusetts when Nixon invaded Cambodia. I mean, believe me, I've been a peace activist my whole life,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not unaware. And the false flag story is an important component. And yes, 9/11 was part of a string of, you can start with JFK and go right down through history.
Mm-hmm.
And every country in the world has pulled off false flags. And so the point being that 9/11 brought a whole new dimension to what they can get away with. And we're looking for justice for the people that got murdered.
Well,
and talk to the firemen and that's our in with those guys, hey, we're not.
No, I have friends who have family members that were lost in that attack. But you see, the thing is that this was not my first go round. I mentioned when I started my radio talk show career was in 95. Well, actually before that, but on 95, when I was on WATR in Waterbury, was when the Oklahoma City bombing happened. And, every other radio talk show host across the country was giving everybody OJ updates every 15 minutes. And I said to my listeners, hey, look, if you want an OJ update, turn the dial. I don't want your listenership. 80 something, was it 87 people, lots of women and children were blown to pieces in Oklahoma City. I want to talk about that. And the point is, like I said, once I got in touch in researching that, and I spoke with the news producers that were in Oklahoma City, and I talked to Charles Key, and the whole story about the Oklahoma City bombing with Terry Nichols and Timothy McVeigh, that was a lie. It was a lie, a flat out, bald-faced lie. And I put the footage at the end of 9/11 in plain sight. You could see it for yourself. So the 9/11 attack was just one of many. And we can go after one and go after this one or go after that one, but we have to recognize that they are all connected by the same people.
I don't disagree with you, but the name of our group is Boston 9/11 Truth. And
right.
That's what we try to stick to.
Okay. Well, we won't talk about secret societies or military industrial complex. We won't talk about, some of the other false flags that have occurred. We'll just focus only on 9/11. I don't think that that's the way to go, but we can respectfully disagree with one another because I feel that they're all connected.
I have a suggestion. There are two different categories here. First is hitting people over the head with a 2x4, people who have an attention span of a potato.
Right.
That's one part of it. But the other part of it is, finding out what really happened. And I'm very concerned that in our group, two people who have huge libraries of and all kinds of pictures off the internet, which are all gone now, gone off the internet, are now in retirement and not available. And I would like to have some sort of library system set up. Not anybody set up a library, but that we could have 100 computers or more that had all this information, documents.
I hate to interrupt you. I'm having a hard time hearing you. Somebody has a short circuit on their audio.
Oh, geez, probably me.
And it's going.
Okay, all right.
I need to mute Craig McKee.
We need all this evidence. We need. Is that better, Dave?
No, he seems to be gone now.
Good. All right. We need to have save this evidence that's been accumulated over the years. You cannot go to YouTube or the internet anymore and find much of this stuff.
Yeah, it's
And
gone.
where we could before, all this evidence. And so I'm saying that we should work out some sort of a system that it's on 100 different computers, all of our computers or something, because now you can just go to Micro Center and buy a 6 terabyte Toshiba hard drive for $99. So we could have all this information on a whole bunch of hard drives.
There are a bunch of people who are doing exactly that.
Well, we should all get connected with them then, because very, very important.
Okay. Can we wrap this up and get to our agenda? I see other hands are up, but I'm afraid this will go on for another half an hour, and we do have an agenda item, so I think I kind of need to close off the questions. And yeah.
How can we get a hold of Dave von Kleist?
You
Are you okay with getting out your contact information?
sure? My email is dvonkleist.
Before you do, we're still recording. Do you want it on the recording?
Well, I'll tell you what, go to my website, davevonKleist.com. You can go there, or you can go to thewtfreports.com. So those are 2 ways to get in touch with me.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you for offering to have me on as a guest. It's I haven't done too many interviews in a long time, so I hope I didn't ruffle any feathers. I'm just giving you a brain dump of what I've accumulated over the past 15 years.
Oh, it's not hard.
Well done. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dave.
Thank
Yeah,
you,
I
Dave.
certainly
Very much.
appreciate your presentation. It was very, very interesting.
You're
Well,
great. I'm so glad you're back.
Well, thank you much. Well, listen, spread the world, spread the word, and start listening to the radio show. If you go to thewtfreports.com, all the archives are there.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for coming.
All right, guys. Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Dave.
I'm gonna bail. So you all have a wonderful evening and a good weekend. And thank you all.